Imagine waking up one morning to the shocking news. All of Antarctica's ice has melted overnight. The frozen white continent, holding 90% of the world's freshwater ice, has suddenly vanished into the ocean. At first, it might sound like a distant problem, but the consequences would be global, catastrophic, and immediate. So, what would really happen if Antarctica's ice suddenly melted? Antarctica is huge, bigger than the United States and Mexico combined. It holds about 26.5 million cubic kilometers of ice, which is nearly 70% of all the fresh water on Earth. If all of it melted, global sea levels would rise by more than 58 meters, 190 feet. That's enough to redraw every coastline, swallow cities, and displace billions of people. This isn't just an environmental issue, it's the single biggest threat to human civilization as we know it. If the melt happened suddenly, within days, the oceans would rise catastrophically. Coastal cities like New York, Tokyo, London, Shanghai, Karachi, and Sydney would vanish underwater. Entire countries like Bangladesh, the Netherlands, and island nations like the Maldives would be wiped off the map. Billions of people would lose their homes, sparking the greatest mass migration in history. Wars over land and resources would likely erupt as survivors scrambled for higher ground. With sea levels so high, familiar coastlines would be unrecognizable. Florida would disappear. Much of California's coastline would be underwater. India's fertile plains would flood. Africa's coastal cities would drown. In fact, maps of Earth would need to be redrawn completely. Humanity would be forced to live mostly on mountains, plateaus, and inland regions. Antarctica's ice isn't just frozen water, it also plays a crucial role in regulating Earth's climate. The white ice reflects sunlight back into space, keeping the planet cool. Without it, the Earth's surface would absorb more heat, accelerating global warming. Temperatures could rise several degrees within decades, making many regions uninhabitable. Weather patterns would also spiral out of control. Stronger hurricanes, violent monsoons, and endless droughts would ravage the planet. The world wouldn't just flood, it would burn and storm at the same time. When freshwater from melting Antarctica mixes with salty oceans, it disrupts something critical: thermohaline circulation, the conveyor belt of ocean currents. This system distributes heat around the planet, keeping Europe mild and the tropics stable. But with too much freshwater, this balance collapses. Northern Europe could plunge into a sudden ice age, while the equator could bake under unbearable heat. Crops would fail, famines would spread, and billions more lives would be at risk. Antarctica's ice also supports unique ecosystems. Penguins, seals, and krill would lose their habitat, causing a collapse of the Antarctic food chain. But the ripple effects wouldn't stop there. Global fisheries depend on the stability of these cold waters. With the collapse of Antarctic life, humans would lose one of their most vital food sources. Coral reefs would bleach and die in hotter, more acidic oceans, erasing marine biodiversity. Earth's sixth mass extinction would accelerate dramatically. If Antarctica melted, civilization as we know it would face total collapse. Economy. Trillions of dollars in infrastructure lost overnight. Agriculture. Flooded lands and shifting climates would cripple food production. Health. Stagnant floodwaters would breed disease. Society. Mass migrations, wars over territory, and political chaos would follow. Nations might fall, and humanity would be forced into survival mode. For billions, life would become a desperate struggle. Over centuries, the Earth would eventually stabilize into a new state. But this new Earth would be hotter, stormier, and with far less land. Human populations would shrink dramatically, and only the most adaptable communities would survive. Civilizations might rebuild inland, but humanity would never forget the loss of its greatest cities. Earth would become almost alien compared to the world we know today. The good news is, Antarctica won't melt overnight. In reality, it would take thousands of years for all that ice to disappear. But climate change is already melting it faster than ever before. Scientists estimate that even losing just a fraction of Antarctica's ice could cause several meters of sea level rise within the next century. That's enough to devastate coastlines and change millions of lives. So while the sudden melt is science fiction, the gradual disaster is already underway. If Antarctica's ice suddenly melted, Earth would be reshaped completely. Sea levels would drown our cities, climates would spiral into chaos, species would vanish, and human civilization would face collapse. The White Continent isn't just ice, it's the foundation of life as we know it. Maybe the real question isn't what if it melted, but what can we do to stop it from happening? Our planet is fragile, and its future depends on choices we make today. Globe, if you found this journey thought-provoking, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, share it with curious minds, and subscribe to What If Verse for more fascinating explorations into our universe.